Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Missile Industries' XB Found Ford Fairmont Hardtop 351 project. Now in today's episode, hot on the heels of doing the garnish for the engine bay, I'm going to do the suspension, well the vast majority of the suspension. You know the tricky things like prying out the old factory V8 springs and putting in newer, slightly shorter, slightly lower factory or aftermarket V8 springs, hectic Koni red rebound adjustable front shock absorbers to go with the back ones, and a whole raft of other bits and bobs, ball joints, bushes, spring saddles, and this care package here that came from Cambo Ford, who has been subscribing to my channel now for quite some time, all the way back to the start of the wagon project I believe. So he sent me that care package months ago now, because he'd already done his suspension on his hardtop and he'd gone with full replacement lower arms, whereas I'm a bit cheaper than him and I'm just going to refurbish the old ones. So let's see what we've got. Now from what he what's this? True Crime Island. I always enjoy a good sticker. That looks a lot like Grand Theft Auto font, which I'm a big fan of as well. I wonder what True Crime Island is. I'm probably going to have to Google that to figure it out. But for the time being, Cambo has sent the upper rods that go through the upper A-arms. He's sent through lower control arm ball joints and upper control arm ball joints, and a set of rubber inner control arm bushes, which is great because I've been told, and it does make sense in hindsight, that the rubber ones put a lot less stress through the sheet metal subframe of the front end of these cars. So I went with nolethane in the wagon, and I have been mentally thinking to myself I should go over that and put rubber ones back into the subframe, just so I can nurse it through a few more years before I need to get under there and repair anything. So that's great, Cambo, thanks very much for that. And I will have to figure out what True Crime Island is all about, but I'm sure Google will provide me with some answers. So earlier in the week I busted out my 25-year-old can of GMH Black, and I went through and sprayed all of the yellow in black. So that took about an hour of my time, and that was an hour of my time well spent, because this looks nice and factory in black rather than yellow like everything else in this car. Slowly but surely I'll be covering up all the yellow that doesn't need to be there anymore with green or black, which I'm much happier with. I'll be very pleased when I get this car into primer, just because it'll all be in primer colour, and it'll be that much closer to my vision of Kawasaki green for the entire car. First things first, do all the suspension, get rid of all of that gacked, gross, old, mismatched garbage, and hopefully I will get onto brakes, sway bar, because I haven't ordered any of that yet, in the not too distant future. So, because I do have the brake calipers rebuilt and ready to go, though they're not red yet, but I'll definitely get onto that. So this episode suspension, probably next episode brakes, because I dearly want to have brakes that work. I'd like to get the car running, to be honest, but I'm going to need to check out that fuel tank. So the more stuff that comes out of the boot of the car and gets built into the car to complete it, the better my chances of pulling that tank out of the car and having a look to see how bad the tank is. The tank doesn't actually have anything in it from what I can tell, because it sounds like it's dead set empty. But I've decided against tipping fuel in it and hoping for the best, because if it does turn out to leak and I've just injected a whole bunch of fresh vapor into it, then it's not going to lend itself very well to being repaired I have looked online to see if I can buy a replacement tank, and they are available for around $1,000. So what I think I'll do with the tank is pull it out, slosh some water into it, see if the water leaks out. And if the water doesn't leak out, I will commit to doing rust repairs inside the boot area while the tank is out, and then reinstall the tank. And then hopefully, if I have a tank that's reliable, I will put fluids into everything: gearbox, engine, brakes, power steering, fluids into everything, petrol in the tank, start the car up and see if I can get it to move on its own steam, because that will be a massive landmark for this project, having a car that runs and drives. Probably no dash or no ignition, but we'll find a way. Okay, the first thing I'm going to need to do is remove these factory V8 springs, which theoretically are standard ride height. Now, I don't have the special tool which pulls the spring up from the top of the strut tower. What I did last time was use a combination of regular spring compressors and then a giant pry bar to just pry the shock out of its mount, which is super dodgy, and I declined to film it last time because I didn't want to film myself getting a spring in the face, which is pretty much what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to put the clamps on it, clamp the shit out of it till I have enough room to rattle it. Then I'm going to go get my wrecking bar and a motorcycle helmet, which is sitting over there on the shelf, and hope for the best. And when I come back to this, you will see the spring out in the suspension moving freely without the spring holding tension on all of the assembly. So when I pick this back up, hopefully I'm not in hospital. Okay, I'm barely minutes into this and I have only 2 spring compressors on this spring, and it's already very loose, which leads me to conclude that these are not factory V8 Falcon springs. These are something else that isn't King Springs yellow. So, and out they come. No face smashed or anything. So this spring looks a lot shorter and beefier than the V8 springs I pulled out of the wagon. Now, if I'm somewhat committed to this idea that these are some other spring other than factory, I'll go get the wagon spring and I'll compare it to this one and I'll show you what I mean, because the wagon spring is way longer than that. Way longer. Factory standard ride height V8 wagon spring right here. Maybe these have been hectically cut short, so the car is quote unquote lowered, but the spring has just been cut by a coil or two, because, you know, people do that, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's been done to this car in the past when it was worth next to nothing. Sure does look like a regular factory spring. So there we go. Sure looks sufficiently beefy, but they've lopped 2 coils off it to make it hectic and low. Well, that's good news, because it means it's going to be easy to pull that spring out. And yes, I was replacing it anyway because cut springs are a no-no. Doesn't look very cut though, does it? Doesn't look very cut. Never mind. The important thing is that spring is out, and that's the only part of this job that requires the special Ford tool. Everything else you can just wing it with your own tool. So let's carry on. Boom! ball joints appear to be in pretty good order, but you know, since this is all going to be new, it's getting replaced no matter what. And those boots, actually that bottom boot is toast, but this top one is pretty decent. But never mind, we replace it all. So that bottom ball joint is totally gapped.
With their friends.
Might keep that one rather than throw it out, it's not bad. You never know when I've got a shit box to do up that's not a coupe or a wagon. So I've never had these upper arms off the car before because the wagon had actually had the upper arm bushes done already before I got it, so I just left it as it was. And the sedan, similar story, had been rebushed sometime in the past. But this one, those bushes obviously don't feel very free, and from what I can gather, I just need to get a socket into there and that whole mount will undo, and I can pull it out and I can dress all these arms with the new bushes. But first I'm going to give them a thorough clean and probably paint them too, because well, I'm here, I may as well, because this is my forever coupe, so I may as well make all the pieces pretty. And boy did I miss a lot of yellow. Might spray bomb that some actual black paint, but for the time being rip this out and just see what's wrong. What you doing? I hear the barking. You want to come downstairs? Okay, update time. Off camera I pulled all the suspension arms out of the right side of the car. I wire wheeled everything and then I painted it all black with the POR 15. So that's all ready to go back together again. I've also blacked out the wheel wells of all of the bits and bobs. Seeing as how all the suspension's out, I might as well get stuck into blacking all that out properly. My disc brake rotors have arrived, and also the brake pads. So I need to paint some brake calipers red so they can dry while I put all this together. I also did my strut tops in POR 15 for that enduring black plastic coating look. Now I just need to chuck it all together again. Alright, the calipers are painted. It's time to start assembling all the goodies so I can put this car back together. I'm going to knock in these bushes that Cambo Ford gave me in his care package. Rubber. And start from there. Much better. Alright, lower control arms are assembled. Time to do the upper control arms. Somewhere in here I have lost a nut to attach the upper A-arm to the strut tower. I don't know where it is. I had to, then I didn't have to. So I stolen one from the driver's side for the time being, but I'm still going to have to find that lime green nut from inside the engine bay. Don't know where it is. Okay, it's a sunny Eka Wednesday morning and day off work. So I'm back in the shed adding more bits and bobs to the suspension. Now what I want to do immediately is put that lowered king spring into that gap there, drop that Koni shock down into the hole, and put my POR 15 painted strut tops onto my freshly painted strut top nuts, because the engine made it look tidier if those were in and everything wasn't rust coloured. So painted those this morning, threw down some more red paint on the calipers after I had a look to see what the coverage was like, and it was garbage, so did that again. Packed away a few bits and bobs. Some of the stuff on this coupe has been reconditioned in the past, probably 30 years ago, so I'm just going to pack away all the parts that are salvageable for a future project. Don't know what project's going to be, but you know, why throw away things that are still usable? Like C4 transmissions and lowering springs that aren't king springs, but still lowering springs. And 302 Clevelands need a refresh, but see, I'm kind of surreptitiously collecting the bones for yet another project. Obviously those hot wires aren't going to be the long-term wheel on this car, but they'll look great on some other car. It's not a coupe. Yes. I do have enough wheel nuts to put those hot wires on my wagon, but the ground clearance might be an issue once I sacrifice all of that tyre height. So anyway, let's get stuck into putting shiny powder coated things into this blacked out area down here that's probably very hard to see from where you're sitting. But let's get into it, because it'll be lunchtime soon and I'd like to eat lunch. Preferably after the shock and the spring go in, and I can look at it all assembled and go, ah, yes! Alright, spring is in. Now it's time to drop my shiny new Koni shocky in and see if it's long enough to do the job. As you can see by the lack of thread sticking up, these short throw shocks are quite short, which is what I want because it means less sag in the suspension at the bottom of the stroke, which means less body roll. closer these arms are to parallel, the happier I will be. That means good handling, not crap handling. You can't expect too much from an old Ford, but you can make it as good as you can with the tools you have available. Didn't see any lubricant included in this kit, so I'm going to work on the assumption that you just put it all together as it is. Okay, that's the meat and potatoes of this project complete. New shock and spring in place, looking resplendent. Now what I'll do next is tie rod ends, repack the bearings for the new rotors, and then stick the rotors on and the calipers, and I reckon that'll probably do. I'm not going to bother bolt the sway bar back up because my plan is to replace that sway bar with a beefier sway bar just as soon as I figure out how much money I'm willing to spend. Okay, summary time for episode 22. As far as you can tell, the suspension is finished. I still have to put the plate on with the bump stop on it, but I don't need to do that just yet because it's blocking the nice view of the shock and spring combo. So for the time being, I'm just going to leave it like that while I get stuck into other stuff. So there you have it, new ball joints, new bushes, new shock, new springs, reconditioned brake calipers, new rotors. I noted that the bearings were Timken bearings made in the USA, and when they came off they felt great, so I've repacked those with grease and that should be good to go. It all feels nice and smooth, and I look forward to putting the wheels back on it. The wheels, the bump stops, the guards, all of that, in anticipation of the next move, which I'm not sure what is yet. I'm going to pull that tank out, that's what I think I'm going to do. So after I've buttoned all the suspension up on the front, I'm going to pull the tank out of the back, have a look at it. It's empty and I suspect it probably leaks. My light's going flat. And I'm going to need to find a solution for that tank, whether I buy a new one or JB Weld the one I have just needs to hold a bit of fuel. For the time being I'm happy with that. And new soft brake lines as well. New O-ring for the hard line into the engine bay. This might be the most comprehensive front end overhaul I've ever done on a Ford.